welcome to the Transatlantic Sports Show. I'm your host, Anthony Wootton. You can follow us on social media at TASS_UK. Special program today, shifting our attention from the NFL and American football, and we're going to focus on baseball because in just a few weeks' time, we've got the return of the MLB London Series. And again, it is a divisional rivalry for us to look forward to. The Philadelphia Phillies playing host to their arch rivals, the New York Mets, for 2 days, 2 glorious summer days of baseball coming to the UK. And if you've never been to baseball before, it's a great introduction to the sport. And if you have been and you're a baseball fan and you got tickets for this matchup, we're going to treat you on this program. We're going to educate you on those ones to watch. Bryce Harper, indeed, being one of the headline acts heading over to the UK this summer. I'm going to be joined by a very special guest, Marcus Hayes. He's a sports reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer. He covers the Philadelphia Phillies. We're going to talk all things Phillies. And also, we're going to look ahead to the Eagles season now that the NFL schedule has been released. Of course, they kick off their campaign playing abroad, just like the Philadelphia Phillies are playing abroad. And the Eagles will be playing host to the Green Bay Packers, NFC playoff rivals in Sao Paulo, Brazil, making history nonetheless down there in the Southern Hemisphere. But fundamentally, this is a very special program all about the MLB London Series. So that's enough from me. Let's get things started, shall we? And here's my interview with Marcus Hayes. Hey, welcome back to the Transatlantic Sports Show. Thank you very much for subscribing to our YouTube channel. And if you're an audio listener, please go to YouTube and hit subscribe. Just search us up, Transatlantic Sports Show, or at TASS_UK. And then likewise, if you're subscribed on YouTube and you're like, I can listen to this on my run or whilst I'm out on the walk or even whilst I'm cleaning the house, then please check us out. Your favorite podcast provider. We're available on all those podcast providers. Just search for the Transatlantic Sports Show. And on social media, you want to check out some of our video content on our socials. We are on Instagram at TASS_UK and likewise on Twitter, which is now X, at TASS_UK. I'm your host, Anthony Wootton, and this guy, our special guest right here, the guy giving us the X is Marcus Hayes, who is a sports reporter from the Philadelphia Inquirer. And the reason why he's joining us today is because we are looking ahead. We're just a few weeks away, probably 3 weeks away now, from the MLB London Series, the third MLB London Series to come over to the UK. I'm going to say London, but it was all in the title there. We've been treated to divisional matchups on previous occasions. We've had the Red Sox and the Yankees, and last year, of course, it was the Cardinals and the Cubs. We had John Goodman in the crowd, Bill Murray in the crowd. Who's going to be here for the Phillies? Will it be Rob McElhenney? He did a promotional video. And who will it be for the New York Mets? We're going to look forward to this matchup, this rivalry that's coming to London at the start of June. And with Marcus Hayes being a sports reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer, he's well equipped to educate us all on what to look out for with this fantastic Phillies team. Marcus, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming back, man.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Anthony.
Look, the Phillies, I said fantastic Phillies, and I think it's an apt title to give them because they've been the first team this season in MLB to hit 30 wins. We've seen the reverse series of this one because the Phillies are going to be the home team in London, but this week they've been the road team to the New York Mets. They had a doubleheader the other night. The Mets, not the Mets, excuse me. The Phillies swept that 2-0, and then they had a massive win on Wednesday night, which was last night at the time of recording. It was 10-5 in that game. Bryce Harper, will focus on him in a little while. But, I mean, this Phillies team, they're certainly on fire, and they're in a division with the Atlanta Braves, who are top dogs as well in their conference. So, the Phillies to be where they're at right now, we're in for a treat, aren't we?
You really are. They're really a fun team to watch right now, which isn't always the case even when they're winning. Sometimes they have to win with their two best pitchers, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, and all these home run hitters, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, sometimes Nick Castellanos, sometimes not. But they're actually playing a pretty good brand of baseball right now, and I hope that continues to give the crowd that they're visiting an eye full of good baseball, because they can play bad baseball. Like, they ran into a couple of outs last night. Yeah, I think they're a little tired right now. They've played a lot of games, especially road games. But I think they're going to be very focused for the London series. They're very eager to do it. The guys in the clubhouse are talking about it. There are actually some British reporters at the game last night that I was at, sort of, doing what you're doing, preparing the audience for what's to come. And a lot of times, you get teams going out of their element. Like, the Eagles go to England quite a bit, and they don't always look forward to it. But this Phillies team has a good attitude about it, and a good attitude in general.
Well, this Phillies team, I think one of those reports is Charles Wolford from the Times. He's a friend of the podcast. I've seen that he's been out there this week. He's also a Phillies fan as well, so I'm sure he's been delighted with his trip. He sent me some photographs from that game earlier in the week. I think it was the doubleheader. I think he's been there with for the whole series, which is great, and well done to him. He's a big Philly sports fan. If you've spoken to him, then you will have worked that one out. You mentioned Bryce Harper there. I want to talk about him in a bit more detail in a moment, but the London Stadium, I don't know if you've seen any of the games that have been played at the London Stadium. What it lends itself to is home runs, and we've got a home run hitter. He's leading the team in home runs, but he's not leading the team in batting average, is he? That's Trey Turner. So we've got two excellent batters, some hitters who are coming to the London Stadium. And as I said, we could be in for a treat with some home runs aplenty, because there have been, history tells us, there's going to be home runs in this matchup.
Well, and they're not even the best home run hitters on the team, believe it or not. There's a guy named Kyle Schwarber, who I think has hit something like 91, 92 home runs in the last 2 years. Of course, when he doesn't hit a home run, he usually doesn't hit. He also has led the Major League Baseball in strikeouts, and he's the leadoff hitter, so you're going to see him more than anyone else. But yeah, this is a Phillies team, because Citizens Bank Park is one of the 4 or 5 easiest parks to hit home runs in. They built the team to win with home runs. So, Nick Castellanos, who's probably the least of anybody's worries right now, and often, he's a 30 home run guy. Harper's a 30 home run guy. JT Realmuto the catcher can hit 25, 30 home runs. Trey Turner can hit 25, 30 home runs. And Schwarber's a 40 or 50 home run guy. And Harper probably hasn't had his best season yet, and he's won 2 MVPs. So you're going to see a lot of power in London when they come.
We've seen the contract that Shohei Ohtani's on. We all know the Manny Machado contract. But Bryce Harper, when he signed his deal with the Phillies, I mean, he's on a huge super contract with the Phillies. What is it about this guy that makes him so special?
Well, I will say this. Like, the backstory on Bryce Harper, and I hope this is covered well. The phenomenon of European soccer teams sort of beating the bushes for the best players at a very young age, that's not really done here. Bryce Harper was done with high school when he was 16 years old and went to junior college to play baseball. He is all about the business of baseball, the way that soccer phenoms are all about the business of soccer in Europe. So he's the aberration. He's the exception. So what makes him so special is that he's incredibly dedicated to his craft. Always has been. He's in unbelievable shape all the time. He wants to play every day. He wants to practice all the time. And he understands the sort of unwritten rules of baseball, being respectful to the other team, but he's also a showman. That is his actual nickname. He's the showman. What he's going to do in London, I think, if he has any success, I'm sure he's planning stuff right now. Home run celebrations, things to do if he gets on base, gesticulations to make. He is, and unlike many guys who are showmen, he produces. I believe at the end of the last postseason run, Bryce Harper's numbers in the postseason were second. If you go into different metrics, his numbers, his likelihood to make a big play or get a big hit, were second only to Babe Ruth.
Wow.
So not only is he demonstrative, he produces.
Fantastic. Can't wait to see him, and looking out for that showmanship, as you said there as well. So that's a nice little tease for baseball fans over here in the UK who are looking forward to going to that London Series game between the Phillies and the Mets. But the Phillies are the home team, so we're going to be treated to some of the home delights. What kind of Philly food? This is the killer question, Marcus. What are the Philly treats that we can look forward to, that we're going to be spending our hard-earned cash on when they're over here?
Well, of course, they're going to have cheesesteaks, right?
Gotta have it,
I'm
man.
a Philadelphia transplant, and but I've been here for 30 years. So I got to tell you, it's not the best thing you can get. Hopefully, not only will they bring cheesesteaks, but also roast pork sandwiches. Now, the roast pork sandwich in Philadelphia for Philadelphians is probably a step above the cheesesteak. Not more popular, but a little bit more desirable. You get kind of a hard roll, and you put this pork that's been roasted in its own juices for 24, 48 hours. This stuff called broccoli rabe. It's like a bitter kind of cruciferous vegetable. And I like to get it with extra sharp provolone cheese, which adds a little bit of tang and bite. And you let it, it's hot, and you let it sit for about 15 minutes, and it's just absolutely delectable. So hopefully you'll be getting some of that. Philly is also really well known for its cannoli. It has a very, very big Italian population, has an Italian market. So it's known for its cannoli. So you'll probably get some of those, rolled hard dough. I think it's like a ricotta confection.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the things that I think you will be getting. And I might be cutting off my nose to spite my face here, but Philadelphia is also known for Yuengling beer. Yuengling is the oldest brewery in Pennsylvania. It's in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. It's kind of in the middle of the middle of the state. And not a fan. So if you see Yuengling lager, maybe avoid that, but dive into the rest of the stuff.
Okay, look, we can have some. Hopefully, I'm sure they'll be what they've done previously. Are some of the local London breweries? They've dedicated a special ale and lager to the MLB London Series, so we can enjoy that delight whilst feasting on some of that amazing cuisine that you've just got me salivating thinking about. So thank you very much for that insight, Marcus.
No, well, my pleasure. If you could see more of me, you'd see that I have done my own research.
You certainly don't look it on camera, man. So very good, very good. Look, Philly fans, I mean, they're a passionate bunch. We know that. The Eagles, Flyers, and of course the Phillies fans. How do they feel about having two home games, not just one? So it's not, it's not the Eagles going on the road. We'll talk about the Eagles going on the road a little bit later, but it's not the Eagles going on the road for one game. This is two games against a division rival as well, home games that they're giving up. How are they feeling about that? The decision that's been made by the franchise to bring those two games abroad.
When I got here, they had just gone to London a couple of times. The Eagles had just gone to London a couple of times for preseason games. And there's nothing bigger than the Eagles here. I believe that helped sort of pave the way for Philadelphia representing whatever. And Philadelphia, the city, and their sports fans love it. They really do. Like, they don't resent the fact that, okay, we're going to lose two games that we could see and maybe home field advantage for those two games, as much as they delight in the fact that, hey, everybody gets to see our Philly guys. Yeah. So with the Eagles are opening in Brazil against the Packers, right?
Yeah.
Well, Philadelphia is, there's a little bit of resentment. Hey, we want to see this game. We want to see Jordan Love, the Packers' young quarterback. We only get so many games with Jalen Hurts, our young quarterback here in Philly. But there's a real sort of sense of pride that, hey, they asked us to go. It's not like Jacksonville, who goes to, London and plays every year and gets bigger crowds in London. It's more of a, hey, they asked Philly to be here. We must be important. Let's represent.
Let's go. Yeah. My neighbor across the road, she's a Philadelphia native. She just had a baby. Her daughter's about 8 weeks old. And she gave me the itinerary of the merchandise that her daughter already has Philly sports related, which is very, very cool. So yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a passionate bunch. I could just look out the window and I could see a passionate Philly family over here in Henley-on-Thames in rural Oxfordshire in England. So you guys certainly travel well. You guys being Philly sports fans, I know that you're an adopted native of Philadelphia, and it's your job to cover Philly sports. For the first time, baseball fans who are listening, you talked about Bryce Harper there. We mentioned some of the names. Who are some of the guys to watch, the ones to watch, if they're rooting for the home team? They're going to the London Series. It's the first ever time they go into baseball, and they're like, okay, let's go for Philly because they're the home team. We're gonna back those. Who are the guys to watch? The ones to watch. Give us 2 or 3 guys to look out for, as you know, besides Bryce Harper, who we've covered.
Okay. Well, one of the guys I like to watch more than anybody else is JT Realmuto. He's their catcher, and he's really good. He's probably the best all-around catcher in baseball, but that's kind of like being the best all-around center in football or the best all-around left back in soccer. You know, you don't get as much variety. I like to watch him because he's the best catcher athlete that I've ever seen. He's one of the fastest guys on the team, whereas catchers usually are really slow. He has a great command of the pitchers. You'll see him talking to the pitchers and doing things like that, and a real good presence. So JT Realmuto, and he's very productive. He's when they lost Trey Turner, their shortstop, who I don't think is going to be back in time for the London Series.
Right.
Or I can give you his name. He's got a hamstring injury. But if when they don't have Trey Turner, they put him in the second spot in the batting order, which is remarkable for a catcher, regardless. And he's done well. So he's an interesting guy to watch. And another guy, and I'll give you a little bit of personal information here. My 12-year-old told me that she had her first athlete crush. And I said, well, who's your athlete crush? And she's, of all people, she said this guy, Bryson Stott. Now, Bryson is a young second baseman who's got those rugged good looks, long blonde hair, and he's really a gritty player. He plays really hard. He can play shortstop. He can play second base. He can bat anywhere in the lineup. And he's having a very, very good, I want to say, 3-week stretch right now. He was very good last. He's better than they thought he was going to be. And he's got a lot of charisma. And he might be the smartest guy on the team. He's a wonderful guy to ask a question to, because if he's interested in the question, he'll give you a very thoughtful and detailed answer, and often give you an answer that brings in facets of the issue that you haven't thought of. You know, it's different angles. So I would encourage all the London reporters out there who have a chance to talk to Bryson Stott to talk to him, because he's really smart, really engaging. He can play third base, shortstop, first base, second base, and he can hit anywhere in the lineup. And according to my 12-year-old, he's hunky.
Bit of eye candy for the first time baseball.
And I would be remiss.
You
Probably the best pitcher in baseball is Zach Wheeler over the last 4 or 5 years. Now, Zach isn't really, he's not very demonstrative. He's not really a great talker, but he is really he might be the most valuable player on the team since he joined it in 2020.
Well, if you follow us on social media at TASS_UK, you'll be able to judge for yourselves those looks, those handsome, rugged looks that Marcus has explained, and of course some of the talent as well on show for the Philadelphia Phillies. So make sure that you follow us on social media. Again, that is TASS_UK. You'll see it at the bottom of the screen if you're watching on YouTube. Let's turn our focus now, Marcus, onto the Eagles. And you mentioned there they're going to kick off the season against, NFC playoff rivals, the Green Bay Packers, to kick things off. A very tough start. Week 1, it's a Friday night game down in Sao Paulo, Brazil. It's exciting though, isn't it? You know, the NFL's kicking off this year with the Thursday night game, the traditional now Thursday night game with the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Chiefs there hosting the Ravens. And then just 24 hours later, down there in the Southern Hemisphere, the Eagles and the Packers. Like you said earlier, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, 2 exciting young quarterbacks. But what a start to the season this is for both franchises.
It really is. As I said, Philadelphia and its teams love to promote Philadelphia, especially abroad. They'll play anybody, anywhere. And that really is a credit to the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, who understands that in order for the league to grow, you have to be amenable to these sorts of things. And they really do love it. And Jeffrey also understands. He's an interesting guy. He's the only guy in the history of the NFL with a PhD in a humanity. He's a PhD in women's studies from Brandeis University here in Massachusetts, which is probably the most touchy-feely degree you're going to see an owner get in the history of the NFL. So he understands. He has an interesting worldview, and he understands too that he's giving his executives and players and coaches a chance to experience a different culture, and that's important to him. So shout out to Jeffrey Lurie for understanding how significant a game like this or games like these can be. But to the point, I mean, Jordan Love's a wonderful representative of the NFL in the United States. Jalen Hurts, similarly, a wonderful representative of the game and the country. So this is not by accident. I don't know if I don't know if the Green Bay Packers would have been asked to go if somebody is controversial, or someone who's become as controversial as Aaron Rodgers was still their quarterback. They might not want to put him out there. But Jordan Love, it's not that Jordan Love doesn't have opinions and Jalen Hurts is, just a football player, but they're kind of like excellent ambassadors. And there's more to that. I mean, the Eagles are full of characters. The Eagles locker room, there's a guy named Darius Slay who plays cornerback and locker room politician. The entire offensive line is interesting. I don't know if your viewers know this, but they have a 6'8", 350-pound former Australian rugby player named Jordan Mailata playing left tackle, who's a better singer than he is a Pro Bowl football player. So you get a lot of characters and a lot of character when you get this Eagles team, and the Packers are arguably the team with the most significant history in the history of the NFL. So, Sao Paulo couldn't have two better they probably couldn't have two better representatives of the game for this game.
I had the pleasure of sitting down and talking to Jordan Mailata at the Super Bowl last year in Arizona, and I mean he's just effervescent, isn't he? He's got charisma in bags full of charisma. In my book here, The Greatest American Football Story That Has Never Been Told, it's about two games that were played during the Second World War in London, and one of those games, the rematch, the Americans lost the first game to the Canadians. They wanted a rematch. The first game was the T-Bowl, then they had the Coffee Bowls played in front of 50,000 spectators, and the quarterback that they drafted in, a ringer they picked up, was Tommy Thompson, a former NFL title. He won the first ever NFL championship for the Eagles, a quarterback, way back in 1948, and then backed it up in 1949. But towards the end of the book, because those games were essentially international games, obviously played during very dark times, but the book reflects on how that brought respite both to the troops, the players, and the spectators at that very dark time, just weeks before D-Day and the invasion of Normandy. And then I explore the growth of NFL International. I'm sat here with my hoodie on, which is from the first Munich game, the first Germany game. We're going to have the second Munich game later this year, but the first game, NFL Germany game between the Buccaneers and the Seahawks, and we had Tom Brady go out there, and I was out there covering it. And the atmosphere in Germany is spectacular. And of course, we know that London is fully committed to the NFL, and the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is guaranteed to be hosting at least two NFL games every season from now until 2033. So it was a 10-year deal that they extended last year. And then next year in 2025, Madrid has been confirmed, that beautiful Bernabeu Stadium. If you're a soccer fan, you're watching from abroad, you've seen the images of Real Madrid and where they play, and they've got the roof that can close over top as well. And then 2026, it returns to Mexico because the Azteca Stadium is being redeveloped for the 2026 World Cup. So from 2026, we're going to have games in Mexico. So it's this ever expanding beast. And it's no coincidence, I don't think, that Roger Goodell is saying, oh, we should have an extra week to the regular season. I think with that, there will need to be a second bye, but that extra week is going to accommodate this plethora of international games. Do you think that these international games, obviously in London, they're here to stay, but can you see that growing and becoming a regular thing now? Because it only seems natural from a marketing perspective for the league, this massive multi-billion-dollar organization, for it to gain more money and make more money. It's got to grow internationally. So, Brazil is just the start, do you think, for further games, even further abroad than Germany, London, and Sao Paulo?
Yeah, I can see games in Africa. I can see a game in Australia. I mean, the biggest market that the NFL wants to tap isn't really like, okay, we're going to be in Germany, we're going to be in Brazil. We're going to be streaming. So the football has become the religion of the United States. It's played on Sunday afternoon. It was played on Sunday afternoons generally. And as people became less sort of community and church centric and more TV and backyard centric, football filled the gap. It became the common ground for most people. But it was free. It was on network television, and you watched commercials, and that's how things worked. Now it's on cable television and network television. So what's the next frontier? The next frontier is streaming. Americans don't like to stream, especially things that they've had for free. However, internationals are used to streaming probably more, especially sports, more so than Americans are. So I believe that the NFL's initiative, I've been told this, their initiative with the streaming with the international games is to develop, to cultivate markets outside of the United States that are eager to stream these games, to use these streaming services. So that's the NFL has always been about television and only television. Everything else is, and betting, but everything else is kind of gravy. That said, they need more streaming outlets and streaming customers.
My apologies, my camera has disappeared, but for those watching on YouTube, we'll bring Marcus into full view. You can still hear me here on the podcast, and that leads on to my next question about Netflix. We've just seen the schedule release for the NFL, and on schedule release day, they announced that Netflix is going to be streaming, and there you go, streaming the two games on Christmas Day. And of course, Amazon have got the Thursday Night Football as well. So it's heading towards this brave new world.
It is. And again, people in my job, columnists and writers, we're not super happy about it because most of us are Americans, and most of us believe that we have the right to watch football for free. We've invested. Why should we be dinged with these extra charges now? Well, I have 3 daughters who love Netflix, so it's not going to really affect me. And we also have the Amazon package, so I get it. But I get it. Like, Americans aren't going to be super happy about it. But also you've got 2 Wednesday games now. Yes, it's Christmas, but it's Wednesday. You shouldn't be playing football on Wednesday. It's not healthy. You shouldn't be playing on football on Thursday, to be honest. And now I think they can have 2 Thursday games, and they can be flexed to Thursday. So the concern for the player has gone by the wayside. The concern for the consumer has gone by the wayside. The concern for the dollar, for money, is the only thing that matters now. And it's becoming, I believe that that's always been the case, but it's becoming more and more apparent as we go. And there's really no defense to it. Adding 2 games over the last 3 years, and saying, okay, well, we're going to give you an extra bye, and we're going to give you 1 or 2 fewer preseason games. Well, the players playing in the 2 extra games don't play preseason games anyway. And I'm not crusading here. What I'm saying is the concern for the player and the concern for the American consumer have taken a very, very much a back seat to the opportunity for the NFL to become an ever more lucrative and global enterprise. And you can argue from the other side, that's their entire job. Their job is to make as much money as possible. And if the players don't like it, they can change the collective bargaining agreement. And if consumers don't like it, they don't have to partake. The NFL doesn't really need either.
Interesting stuff, Marcus. We could talk about that in depth for a lot longer, but we're going to leave it there. And, we appreciate your time and you coming on and joining us and educating us on the Philadelphia Phillies. Before you go, what likelihood have London fans got of seeing this season's World Series champions in the East End out there in Stratford? Looking at it right now, it looks like a realistic possibility, right? I mean, it's still a long old season to go, but the Phillies, they've got to be right up there, surely.
Absolutely. I would call them right now, all things considered. And I understand that the Dodgers kind of have a murderer's row at the beginning of their lineup, and the Braves are built for speed. But soup to nuts, the Phillies' second, third, and fourth starters, our third, fourth, and fifth starters are pitching really, really well. Their bullpen is pitching very, very well. They're not hitting as well as they will at some point. So I don't know if I'd call them the favorite, because we saw them fail last year in the semifinal, the National League Championship Series, and we saw them fail against a very good Astros team before that in the World Series. But I actually wrote a column for today on Inquirer.com here in the States about, because there's reticence here. People are reluctant to get back on the bandwagon, especially this early. But this is probably the best Phillies team we've ever seen. And that's saying something about Phillies teams that had Mike Schmidt and Greg Luzinski and Steve Carlton on them in the 80s, and then Roy Halladay and Cliff Lee and Ryan Howard and Chase Utley, the ambassador of baseball to London, on them in the late 2000s. This is probably the best team we've seen, and they certainly should be expected to succeed in the playoffs both this year and at least for the next couple of years.
Exciting times. Thank you very much, Marcus, and thanks for your time with us today. If people want to follow you on social media, where should they go?
Well, my handles on Instagram and Twitter are at InkstainedWretch, without the W. And I always make this very old and lame joke. I get no W's. So it's InkstainedWretch, but Wretch does not have the W. The reason behind that is because someone already had the handle with the W. So I just made it RETCH, which also lends itself to humor if you ever read my stuff.
Excellent. Look, we've got the dub by having you on the Transatlantic Sports Show this week.
Well, thank you for having me.
My thanks to Marcus Hayes, and make sure you check him out on social media at InkstainedWretch. Great story behind his social media handle there. He is worth following as well, because some of his write-ups are fantastic. In fact, all of his write-ups are fantastic. He's a great journalist who's covered plenty of sport, decades of experience, and his knowledge and insight, you're only going to benefit from it. So make sure you give him a follow on social media. Make sure you follow us and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Transatlantic Sports Show, or TASS_UK. Follow us on social media at TASS_UK, because you're going to want to relive or even experience those MLB London Series games. We're going to be there, so there's going to be plenty of video content to share with you. And of course, we'll have special podcasts all around it as well. So check us out. Make sure you follow us on your podcast provider as well as on YouTube. And please tell your friends about us and give us a 5-star review, because if you give us a 5-star review, that helps other people find us as well. And then later in the year, when we're covering the Munich games, we got the London games, been at the Super Bowl. There's just plenty of content that we just love to share with you. I'm an accredited journalist. We got great guests that come and join us here on the Transatlantic Sports Show. So that's enough for me for this time. We'll be back very soon, reflecting on some of the big stories from around the NFL, and of course, it'd be rude for us not to share with you the Mets side of things ahead of the MLB London Series. So plenty more education and information around the London games from baseball to come. So until next time,